Welcome back to another episode of Conversate with Akeem D. Earl. But before we dive into our special guest, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and your support is very helpful. Now, my next guest hails from the Metro Detroit area. She is currently at the Illinois Answers Project as an investigative reporter. She joined there in 2020, covering the impacts of Chicago, Cook County, and Illinois government action on communities of color. Sidnee is a Metro Detroit native, like I just said, who received her bachelor's degree from Northwestern's Medill School of Journalism just before joining the Illinois Answers Project. She is also a proud graduate from Howard University in Washington, D.C., and she also joined the New York Times Local Investigations Fellowship last year. Please join me in welcoming my friend, the dope, the amazing Sidnee King Pineda to the podcast.
Yay! I'm so excited to be here, finally.
Yeah, glad to have you.
I didn't think I'd ever be on the Whole Lawyer podcast because I'm not a lawyer.
So I should have informed you. This is not the Whole Lawyer section. This is Conversate.
It's Conversate. Well, plug. Go listen to the Whole Lawyer.
Go check out.
Okay. He's a multi-platform host.
Yes. And you know, I'm glad you said that, because that's what I had to do to separate it out, because I felt like all the other interests I had was forming into the Whole Lawyer, and I wanted to keep the audience consistent in terms of like what they're getting. So the Whole Lawyer, I'm going to keep it for lawyers, but Conversate, I get to have dope conversations like this that doesn't have to tie into the law as much.
Well, I am excited to participate. Anyway, shape, fashion.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. So the reason why I have you here is because of Diana Rossini. She was a former reporter, or I forgot her official title, for The Athletic. She reported on different football teams, the Patriots, and the Titans. And obviously we all know the story that came out this year of her having relations with Mike Vrabel, the head coach of the New England Patriots. And that whole rigmarole had me having a lot of questions about like the journalism side. And what interested me the most was the reaction from sports reporters at that time. It felt like everybody just went silent. It was very clear that certain reporters didn't want to talk on it, even though it was their job to talk. It was a very much football related thing. And it seemed like there was some protection in that area. So it made me dive into the world of journalism and reporting, and just wondering the base and the foundation of what it is. So I called on the one person that I knew who is a beast at this stuff, and that's Miss Sidnee King Pineda. So out the gate, what was your reaction to, as a journalist, as a reporter, what was your reaction to that story at first?
Girl, you can be doing that. You can be doing that, girl. You know? Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that reporters have that really should stay pure is like, I'm not going to say objectivity, because it's like a whole debate in the industry on its own, just that word. But your ability to look at something and be uninfluenced, right? In the way that you see it. And obviously like personal, romantic, friendly, whatever relationships sort of put a lens on the way that you would see that. So, you know, it's definitely not ideal to be in any sort of relationship in that sense with someone that you're covering. Yeah. So, I mean, I can see why reporters wouldn't want to talk much about it, because, you know, it's uncomfortable and you don't really want to like put your own on blast in that way, you know? But it definitely was not a good look.
So are you saying that this journalism world is your own little cult? Y'all got your own little protection agency that when it's one of ours, we don't report it.
Journalists, we you know, spew facts, tell the facts for a living. Journalists love to gossip. So I'm sure among the circles there was chitter and chatter. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but I do think that it's newsworthy. So I'm not in the sports reporting world, right? But like there is a responsibility for a sports reporter to speak on it. You know what I'm saying? To talk about, you know, and my understanding is I'm not super familiar with like the sports reporting world, but my understanding was that she was in her coverage very favorable of Lord, what's the coach's name? Hold on, Mike Vrabel. There we go.
Mike Vrabel, yeah.
Yes. She was super favorable. So now it like, puts all of her reporting in question, unfortunately.
Yeah. Can you speak to the difference? Because you say you're not a sports reporter. What's the difference between what you do and what a sports reporter does?
Yeah, I mean, it's just topics. So there are like investigative sports reporters. The Athletic is a great example. They do a lot of investigative work. I think someone in the sports world just won a Pulitzer a few
I think it
last
was,
month.
yeah.
A podcaster. Um, so there's definitely investigative work in the sports world, but what I do focuses on like government accountability. So I take a look at the way governments spend their money, the promises that they make to communities, the way they spend resources like time and people, and how that impacts different communities. And I do that by looking into records, um, interviews, all that type of stuff. So it's, like the same types of skills, just focused on a particular lane.
Got you. So I know for lawyers, we have to swear an oath to be advocates and be just or whatever. Doctors have to do oaths too and stuff like that. And there's like governing bodies around it. Do journalists have to do the same thing in that area too?
No, there's no oath making, or like there's no licensure.
Oath making.
There's no licensure in journalism, which I think is important because, like journalism is referred to as the fourth estate, right? Like that fourth pillar of our democracy. And I think it's important that there isn't a lot of barrier to entry for people who want to be record keepers, who want to be truth tellers, because historically, and I'm sure this is true, right, in like the law field, the more barriers there are to entry, the wider a field looks, right? And so I think it's important for something that's supposed to boost democracy to be democratic. But we do have lots of different like sorts of, organizations and associations that do training and, hold us to a certain standard. There are watchdog organizations that like specifically watch what newsrooms are doing, if they are operating ethically, if they're, covering things fairly, that type of stuff. So, and like I said, journalists like to talk. So if you're not acting right, somebody will tell you.
They don't know. So kind of hopping back to Diana Rossini when it comes to relationships in the field. So you say you cover government bodies and stuff like that, but for her job, she was covering teams and the sports and the coaches and stuff like that. With these watchdog organizations and different committees, stuff like that, how much is sexual relations with the people you're covering covered? Is that like a normal thing that's covered at all these meetings? Like, step one, do not sleep with people or is that kind of like a vague, like, get it how you can type of thing?
I cannot say that I have ever had been in a training where this has been brought up. Like, I don't think I have. And like, I mean, I feel like we're in sort of a new era of journalism, there's like a previous era, which is like kind of what you see when you see movies and stuff, where it's like, a little sleazy. You're meeting people late at night to get tips and sneaking into places and doing things undercover. And I don't do any of that. Like that's not, everything is very much on the up and up. My name is Sidnee. I'm a journalist. Do you want to talk to me or not?
Exactly. Right.
So like that issue has never been something that's at the forefront. But I mean, I think it's like very apparent. We do talk a lot about like ethics and like conflicts of interest and reporting on things fairly. And I think maybe it's just like common sense that if you sleep with someone, like you won't be able to write fairly about the situation. Maybe she thought that she could. I don't know.
And that's what I'm gonna like. It's the same thing like when it comes to like a jury, we're asking them to put biases aside and make a decision about this thing. Even though when we go through voir dire, it's like we're asking them questions and it's like your brother is a cop or your sister is a lawyer or this is or somehow if it's like a robbery case, your aunt works at a bank. It's kind of hard to always like flesh out all the biases possible.
Yeah.
So maybe, yeah, like you said, maybe for her, she was like, nah, this could be my man's and I could still talk
Okay,
with a very like
but
biased, unobjective position.
no, because okay, my husband is a Titans fan, so I feel like I have like a little
Wow. Yeah.
information, about Mike Vrabel. Like he wasn't like the Titans haven't been good for a long time, so he
Yes.
wasn't
Correct.
necessarily like the best coach in the world. And from what I understand, she was tweeting like, "Why hasn't Mike Vrabel gotten his just due?" Or these sorts of things. So I can understand like you may be able to make that case if you look at the coverage and the coverage is fair over time. Now, mind you, I haven't read all of her stories. Like I can't say 50% was positive, 50% was negative, whatever. But for me personally, I think like if I'm in a relationship with someone, that's like a clear, that's just like a red line. Nope, not going to report on that. Like, let me just hand that story to someone else, and you can always do that. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's challenging as a woman in that world, right? In the sports world, to like, confide in someone or just to disclose that relationship, right? Because of the stigmas and things that already exist. But it's your responsibility to do that, Like if the prosecutor was sleeping with the judge, that's a problem.
That's a huge problem.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't know if it's like a straight 1-to-1. Like there's so much more stakes to that. But nah, I get you. But
yeah,
and to answer your question, she was laid it on thick. I'm not gonna hold you. She was wilding. She was tweeting a lot. She named her child after him. Like there was no separation. There was no separation. Like you said, the tweets, every time she went on a TV show, she was laying it on thick. I don't think she recognized how much she was there was no objectivity.
Yeah. And I think like it's really important as a reporter it's impossible to rid yourself of bias, right? Like because we're humans and we have like people like to pretend, and I think like that's what this new era of journalism is sort of kind of understanding that we are human beings and like the idea of absolute objectivity is impossible and kind of a myth. But you have to be aware of your biases, right? Like I'm aware that I'm a Black woman. I'm aware that I, grew up in a metro area in the Midwest, right? Like I'm college educated. Like all of these things inform the way that I see a topic. And so when I'm researching, when I'm writing, when I'm reporting, I have to keep those things in front of me and ask myself, like, how is who I am affecting the way that I'm viewing this? And am I giving it a fully fair view, And, if you're
And why do you think that's such a new way of looking at it? What was the culture before? What were journalists supposed to put up a front as if I am clear in the middle? I have no opinion on this thing. I'm only reporting on the facts.
Yeah. I mean, I think like I think fairness and objectivity are like and were like true tenets of journalism and are sort of it's sort of evolving how we view them. But I think in previous generations, that would have looked like if you ask the Republican candidate a question, you have to ask the Democratic candidate the same question. Or if you ask one person their view, if they have a negative view of somebody, you have to ask the other person, right? And I think a couple of things have like really challenged this, like and brought this to the forefront of conversation in journalism. One was the year that America rediscovered that race is, an issue in the country. Well,
Rediscovered. Breaking news.
Yeah. During 2020, right, when people were reporting on police violence and on like the movements around liberating Black people in this country, right? Like there's this new question on, okay, how do you report on this objectively? Like, and is it appropriate for someone who is impacted by these topics to be writing them? Should those people be the main people writing those stories and not people who don't really have that firsthand experience? And I think also, you know, our president's first campaign was a big part of this too, right? Like, do you need to show both sides of something that's clearly a lie? Right? Like, do you need to sort of add value or ascribe value to something that someone is saying, even though you know that it's not true? Right? Like, and so these things that are happening in our time have sort of evolved how we think about it. And I just think, like, as more people of color, younger people have gotten into the industry, there's a real sort of push to have like more intense conversations about what that looks like in the copy, like in our finished product.
Yeah. So how do you stop it from going all the way to the other end of the spectrum? And it kind of has when anybody could go online and create a page and say whatever unbiased take and they call themselves journalists. But what's preventing the pendulum to swing to all the way to the other side where it's just clearly partisan type of reporting?
I mean, now I do believe that it is good that more people have access to platforms to share stories. I do believe that is good. I think obviously it comes with its challenges because then you just have anything and everything. Real journalism has a process. So when I write a story, I have an editor, and my editor is an older white man who's been in the industry for years and years and years, and he's awesome. And we have different perspectives and see things differently, which is good. Like, and I think one thing that I wish people knew about like reporters is when we put something out into the world, especially investigative reporters, every single word has been labored over and debated. Like, is it a few? Is it many? Is it some? Is it close to 1 million, 500,000? Does this word, you know, suggest this? Does that word suggest that? And so like that process really helps the reporter, me, to confront like, oh, like I was thinking about things this way, but really maybe they're not that way. Maybe that's just the way that I wanted them to be, you know?
I want to go back to something you said earlier about, you said you're a Black woman in this space and you're aware of it, and you're working with an older white man. That also came up with Diana Rossini, the fact that the struggle of women working in this field, and I'm sure it's a different struggle as a Black woman working in this field. The way they framed it, there was two sides, but it was kind of framed as if like, because she's a woman, she had to get close to Mike Vrabel in this way so that she could get an upper hand because it's not a fair fight, which I could understand. But does that not open the door to like, all right, so that's just the nature and the culture of it all, which was also argued like, oh, male reporters be going on vacations and yada 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 and cross the line all the time, and it comes off as if women have their own tactics that they use, and that the same way that men can't use in that way. So as a woman in this field, how are you reconciling that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a man's world. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're dealing with well, it was a man's world. It's becoming a woman's.
Times has changed, yeah.
But when you're dealing with sourcing, right? Like in order to get the best story, you have to have the best sources, right? And like in order to have the best sources to get people to trust you to say things that they wouldn't say to anyone else, especially on the record, you have to have a relationship with them. And that takes time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of persistence. And when you are unfamiliar to someone, right? Like when you don't speak their language, or go the places they go or do the things that they do, right? Like those points of relation are few and far between. And so I can understand, a woman using her wiles to try to get some information.
Wiles. Yeah.
I can understand that because it is challenging. And sometimes it means like having to let go stories that you would report, that you want to report, but you just can't get close to the person that you need the information on. So I definitely think that is a significant challenge. People who are good at the job are, good at figuring out how to get past it. But also, I mean, like, there are people that you can connect with in every area. You might not be able to connect with the CEO, but you might be able to connect with the staffer who sits outside of his office and hears every one of his calls. So sometimes it just takes a little bit more creativity.
Yeah. It's funny when you mention sources. That's when I think about like back in the day, we like in like a trench coat in the hallway, like, hey, come on, just talk to me. So like, how do you get? That sounds fun, low key. I'm not gonna hold you. Whenever I think about getting sources, it's terrifying because it feels like you guys got to be out in the world and having those uncomfortable conversations. But it also sounds fun, like you out here like being like a vigilante, like getting sources. That's how I see it in my mind. But like, how was that process for you?
Yeah. Oh, it stresses me out so bad. Like trying to talk to new people. I'm pretty outgoing, but I still
That's what I'm
get
saying.
very like,
You're good at that. No, okay.
yeah, but it's like, like it's a stranger. I don't know how they're, like it's just it's just a lot to think about, But because a lot of my reporting is community based, like I spend a lot of time going to community meetings and like I be stalking people on the internet straight up, like Facebook messages, Instagram messages, TikTok messages. I'll message your auntie. I'll call you on your house phone. Like, I do that a lot.
A lot of aunties.
Yeah.
A lot of aunts and uncles.
Because old people are at home and they're the ones who answer the house phone. So you got to do that. Like young people do not answer the phone. Let me tell you something. If you, this is a PSA, okay? We reporters are out here just trying to call people. Not everybody is spam, okay? Not everybody is trying to steal your identity. I'm just trying to get my questions answered, and I have a deadline. So if you could answer the phone, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Good luck getting people to know the difference, because once they see that 8720, whatever the random spam is, like, listen, I don't got time. I
got a Chicago area code 312. Okay, so if it's a local area code, answer the phone, please. Please.
All right, so if it's a Chicago area code, pick up, please, because it might be Sidnee just trying to do her job and help the community. Please, guys.
Oh man.
So
but yeah, I mean, oh sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah. No. Go finish. Go ahead.
No. That I was just gonna keep going on a tangent, so you're good.
No, that's good. So you spoke about the process of going through every word and for these articles and all this stuff. Is that what you like most about this process? Is this what you joined or became a journalism for, because this the process of writing and getting to the truth?
No. That is actually the writing part is actually my least favorite part. Like
really?
Yeah. Because it's very surgical. Like the writing part is you can't make any mistakes. You have to be extremely precise with your words, and so it's nerve-wracking to do it, and like honestly like kind of energy sucking sometimes, but it's worth it because of my favorite part, which is I write about things that are like really boring, like really in the weeds, like tax policy and like development incentives and things like that most people wouldn't spend the time looking into, because it's like not right in front of them every day, but it has so much impact on our day-to-day lives. And so my favorite part is when the story is done, when we've done outreach and we've sent people the stories and we've done the TV spots and the radio spots to try to tell people what we did, is when somebody gets back to me and says, hey, I didn't know that my taxes were up for sale this year. And your story helped me like realize, what I can do to save my house. Like that is really, really, really significant to me. Especially when it comes to my people. Like I want to do more of that, like knowing that the information, which I believe really is useful and is out of view. This is my tinfoil moment, out of view on purpose, right? Like these policies are convoluted and complex and like not talked about by everyday people because it benefits the people who it benefits, for most people not to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So to be able to sort of like unfold that, make it plain and accessible for people, is what's most fulfilling about the job to me.
Me and my wife, we took a tax class in law school, and we both came out feeling the same way. We were like, oh, this wasn't written for Black people. This wasn't written for anybody in lower income neighborhoods or anybody, like on purpose written complex, because it doesn't have to be that complicated. And how many people really miss out because it was written that way. Yeah.
I spend so much time like reading statutes and stuff. I always tell my sister is an attorney, I'm always like, I should have, all this time I spend reading these daggone lawsuits and statutes and such and such, I might as well have been rolling in dough like the rest of you lawyers. But instead I'm working for the people.
Not all lawyers. Listen, I work for the people too, man. The government don't be paying that. Man, that's so dope though. So was your focus on community-based reporting? Was that always the goal, or is that something you learned throughout your process, going to Howard, getting your master's?
I initially wanted to be like a news anchor. That was my original 10-year plan when I was 20. I was 20 10 years ago. That's crazy.
That's crazy. Man, that's crazy.
But I spent a few months. I did a semester abroad in Spain, and I did a reporting program while I was there. And I got a chance to report on like migrant communities in Spain. There were these groups of people who were living in southern Spain who'd come in from like African countries. And I was like, I just had no idea that this was part of the Spanish culture. You know what I'm saying? Like when you think about Spanish life, like this is not what you think about. Like there are Black people living here, and they experience a lot of the same things that I experience, at home. And I was like, okay, so this is what I want to do. Like I want to ensure that our stories are being told with dignity, with respect, and with a level of thoughtfulness. And so that's evolved over time, like how I've done that, but that's kind of like always been my mission statement for my work.
That's dope. And we're going to get to your work, but before we get there, I do have I'm gonna test your theory that you would remove yourself from a conflict of interest. This is my final Diana Rossini type of flex. So let's say your husband was building a housing home in Chicago, and that was directly tied to certain tax incentives. And you had to report on not just his housing development, but that block. Let's just say there's a block of homes that's being built, and your husband is building one of those apartments on that block. Would you report on that, or would you remove yourself?
I would go to I'm hoping that in this moment I would be integrous. And that, number one, he wouldn't be up to no good, so that there would be nothing really to write about,
True.
But I probably would just go to my editor and say, hey, like, I'm writing about this block. This property is in part owned by me because,
Right.
were
The
one.
two shall
Right?
become
He's
one.
coming to the house.
Correct.
He's coming to the house.
That's part. See, that's part of it too. That's part of it too. That's part of the conflict as well, for sure.
See, now you see how that doesn't work, because if I was like, man, this is the best program, the best building on the block, right? Like I'm propping, it's for my own interest. So no, I really don't think that I would do that. I really don't.
You. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get to some real reporting now. Some real stories. You wrote a dope article. You wrote a dope article called "Chicago's Efforts to Keep Housing Affordable in Woodlawns Falls Short as Obama Center Nears Opening." The city launched an ambitious plan to keep residents from getting displaced as speculators swooped in, but some projects never happened while others show modest results. Can you tell the people the story that you reported on?
Yeah. So in order to set the scene, go back to 2019. So in 2019, well, honestly, like 2016. In 2016, the Obama Foundation announced that the presidential library would be built in this neighborhood on Chicago's South Side called Woodlawn, in a public park called Jackson Park. And I got two responses. Woodlawn is a historically disinvested neighborhood, and it frankly could benefit from economic support, right, from the city. So one response was, this is awesome. This is what Black neighborhoods need. Like, we need to see development. This will bring business to our community. The other response was, well, a lot of people living here are, one, renters, and two, making not a lot of money. So what will happen when that business comes, right? Like, are we going to be pushed out of the neighborhood? And so the community pushed really, really, really hard for a few years for the city to pass this ordinance that was basically like a package of laws that were intended to stop or slow the possibility of people being displaced from the neighborhood. And that was passed in 2020. And so in 2025, my coworker and I had the idea of sort of, looking at, did those ordinances work? Because the Obama Center is actually opening in 2 weeks. At that time, it was maybe 6-7 months out from opening. And so we wanted to know, if people were still able to live in their homes. And what we found was essentially that the city wrote a bunch of stuff down, but didn't put the money, resources, time, effort behind it to really actually make it happen. And so what happened was, it has gotten more expensive to live in the neighborhood. People are getting pushed out, and the Obama Center isn't the only factor, right? Like, it's gotten more expensive to live in cities in general, right? There are like multiple factors. But there is a lot of speculative investment happening in that neighborhood because of the Obama Center. If you, go on Zillow and look at, listings for homes, just steps away from the Obama Center, in the historic Woodlawn, the site of the new Obama Center, every listing says that. And people are converting. Chicago has these really beautiful, like, multifamily brick homes, and this neighborhood looks very historic and has a lot of charm to it. And developers are converting those multifamily homes into single family homes, huge single family homes that are selling for, $1 million, 1.1 million, $800,000, which is not at all what most people in the neighborhood can actually afford. And so what we found is that new people are moving in. Developers are trying to attract a higher level clientele, a higher level buyer. And the ordinances that the city passed really didn't do anything to stop it.
Jeez. How was a story like this even found? You said you guys got this story. Like, was there one person who just decided to look into it? Because it feels like stuff like this is just sitting there for somebody to just take a peek, and then it uncovers all this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a built interest over time. That's the thing with ambitious stories is it kind of takes relationship building over time. So for example, in 2019, when the community was really pushing for it, I was in grad school and I was covering the protests and stuff happening in the community. to get the ordinance passed. So I'd met some of the people who lived in the community. I'd met some of the organizers. I talked to the local officials. And so I'd just been interested about this topic over time. And then what really opened the door was that the city had passed, they basically copied this ordinance in Woodlawn and pasted it and updated it a little bit into another neighborhood. And so my coworker and I saw that ordinance pass, and we said, oh, it's interesting that the city is sort of redoing this. I wonder if it worked the first time. And so that building over time, just paying attention to things over time, is what helped.
That's dope. So there's a lot of patience in this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So reading this was tough because I was like, I wonder how people balance celebrating a huge Black figure in our community with that very thing displacing Black people and Black families. How were you able to juxtapose that?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, because my focus is government accountability, right? I didn't, honestly, in the reporting process, I didn't think about it much, criticizing the Obama Center. Right. But after we published the story, I saw how the audience was sort of latching onto that, and I was like, oh, y'all do get that, y'all make it. And so, as people have been visiting the center, it's beautiful. Wow. It's representative of, however you feel about, President Obama's, all of his policies and things, right? Just a monument to the first Black president in our country, and somebody who so much represented a time, which was not that long ago, but it feels like people are nostalgic for now,
Crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
It is tense and difficult to try to talk about everything that comes with that, right? And yeah, I think I asked myself, what is my responsibility, right? As a Black person. But actually, I had a conversation with a woman named Erin Haynes. She's a reporter. She's awesome. She runs a newsroom called the 19th News. They're a nonprofit newsroom, and they're specifically focused on covering American politics and policy issues, but from the lens of focusing on women. And I interviewed her a couple of weeks ago, and she said something like, reporting on women doesn't always mean celebrating them. Right? Doing right by women doesn't always mean celebrating every woman, and or everything a woman does. And I think that is a really important thing to think about, because you can acknowledge this is a big feat, and you can also acknowledge the Obama Foundation had no interest in a community benefits agreement with this community, right? The community pushed for an agreement with them. They said no, right? And it is what it is, and that's the truth, two things can be true at once,
Yeah. That's so hard, because what's the cost of celebrating Obama? Listen, man, if anybody's talk bad about Obama, wrong, right, or they're different, I'm ready to fight for Obama. Of course. I feel like I'm always ready. I like people to talk bad about Obama. But when you're looking at something objective like this, yes, he's a huge figure, but to celebrate him at the cost of the Black families that probably got pictures of Obama in their crib. They probably got it on their fridge, and they're going to be displaced out that very home. At what cost do we celebrate this man? And for them to not even have an interest in, because that's my first thought. I was like, Obama don't know what's going on. Because I'm like, Obama wouldn't be putting these people out their homes.
I don't know if Obama got the emails. I don't know if he got the emails. I don't know if somebody was telling him. You know what I'm saying?
But see,
free and clear in this situation.
True.
I don't know. but yeah, I mean, I think that is something as Black people we have a hard time doing, right? It's why, you know, we love to separate the art from the artist. We still play R. Kelly
We
at the
love doing that.
you know,
Oh,
it's like,
100%.
you know, because we want to have these models of
Yeah.
success, right? Like, and it's I think it's important for us to have those culturally. It's important for us to see ourselves in positions of power. But then, you know, like ultimately it's still power. Like it's still the system. It's still capitalism. It's still all of these things that were never intended to truly free Black people, right? Like, so we have to ask ourselves, like, what does that actually mean for the everyday person? You know? Um, I don't have the answer. You know, I just write the facts. You know?
I love it. I love it. So on the site, these graphics you guys have here is actually fire, where you could like scroll and then it like changes to like
Shout out
what
to
was
our data
promised.
reporter, Andrew. He's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's really cool. That's really really cool. And it's basically explaining like what was promised and then what actually happened. So like 52 city owned vacant lots reserved for new affordable housing. And scroll on only one development, a 58 unit apartment building was completed in 5 years. How were these things able to be signed and to be ordered to do, and then it just sits there and there's nothing happened? And even one comment was that they didn't have the funding to do it. And I'm like, weren't these approved? Like, was it funded already allocated to do this thing? It wasn't that it was funded. It was funded, but it wasn't built. Like, how was this able to happen?
Yeah. I mean, I think what's interesting about this is, so at the time this was passed, Lori Lightfoot was the mayor of Chicago. She was the very memed mayor during the pandemic.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah. She was the mayor. And the community, I mean, props to them. They made a lot of noise. Like they pushed very, very, very hard. And you know, in a liberal city, right? Like the mayor doesn't necessarily want to be seen ignoring the people saying, "Hey, we just don't want to be pushed out of our homes," you know?
Right.
And so I think the city was under the gun. They were under pressure to pass something. It would have looked bad if they didn't. And so, really, like what I learned in this process is essentially what happened was you had some people in a room. City government is big, right? Like you had some people in a room with ideas. They didn't necessarily talk to the people who'd be executing those ideas. So they wrote some stuff down, passed a law. Everybody said this sounds good, right? And then when it came down to actually doing it, for example, there's one statute in there that would allocate $500,000 to a nonprofit organization to purchase and rehab housing in the Woodlawn neighborhood, right? Sounds easy peasy. You're giving people free $500,000. They didn't talk to the people first. So when they passed the law, the organization said, hey, actually, like the market conditions don't allow for us to spend this money in a way that's like useful. So to this day, that money has not been spent. It's just sat there. And so like
so it was approved. They didn't take it back. They just have it sitting there.
Yeah, basically. So like this is what we talk about with like government efficiency and accountability. Like it's like it sounds good when these things are said, but then somebody has to be asking like, did you do it? You know, like what happened after you passed the law? Did it have the impact that you wanted it to have? Yeah, and that's really crucial because you know public shame is a powerful force and it helps governments you know correct course. Like you know now the Department of Housing is saying, oh, you know, we're reopening the working groups with the community. We're reopening like talks about implementation for this ordinance, right? Like, and that's because you know we wrote the story and we basically said y'all didn't do what you said you were going to do.
That's really dope because sometimes these entities feel too big to fail, and people could get discouraged and feel like I'm not sure if you run into this with sources or people who feel like, why would I talk to you? Why would I be a part of this? Like, it's not going to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people feel like just because you report on it, these people are so resourceful and powerful. Article the news is just gonna go away in a week, and they're gonna go right back to it.
Yeah.
But you're saying you've seen impact from the work you've done.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, impact is slow. Like people ask me that all the time. Like the people that we talk to for the lead of the story, they were living in their apartment building, got a new landlord, or a new landlord bought the building, which actually violated one of the laws. Like the previous landlord was supposed to give them the right of first refusal, was supposed to notify them of the sale. None of that happened, right? So this new landlord comes in, raised rents a little bit, and has now given them all notices of non-renewal because they are renovating parts of the building. And you know, I asked them if they were planning to raise rents after they renovate, and they said they'll do what the market calls for.
They're going to raise rents. So that's a yes.
Yeah. But we talked to the people for the story, and you know, like their question was, well, if you want me to talk to you, like what is me participating in the story going to do for me? Is it going to help me stay in my house? And that is a really hard question to answer, because I know that the answer is no. Like the story is not going to immediately have impact for that particular person. In some like extraordinary cases, sometimes it does, but it usually doesn't. And it's a very slow, painstaking process. And it's hard because you don't want to feel like you're exploiting people's experiences for a story. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And having to be judicious about, you know, when to say, you know what, you've been through enough. Like I'm gonna leave you alone. You know, I think that's important. And I think that's also a part of, you know, like being a human first and not a journalist first. Like it goes back to that conversation of like bringing yourself into the experience. Like I think a lot of, you know, we're in the fake news era, right? Like the American public has lost a lot of trust in the media. And I think it's important to show up as a person, right? And say, I mean, doing housing stories, it's really difficult. I've written about people who are like living in their cars, who've had to meet me at a McDonald's because, you know, they don't have anywhere else to stay. Like, you know, who are wondering like if I can help them find a place to stay for the night. Like it's really challenging. But to just have like some compassion and put the people first and not the story first, I think is the most important thing. But on the flip side of that, there is sometimes impact, you know, like I've had my stories used in subject matter hearings for legislation.
Nice.
Most recently, like a story that I wrote 4 years ago was like a main piece of evidence in a federal case against the county treasurer. Basically, it was a class of homeowners who were saying that the county treasurer had violated their constitutional rights because of a policy that they enacted. And the people won. And you know, my work was used as a part of that effort. So like it, you know, but that was 4 years after I wrote that story. 4 years after I had to call somebody and talk to them about their eviction, right? And they had to be brave enough to like put their face out there, right? Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, and I think it's a lesson on teaching people to be patient. Kind of we talked about earlier, is like part of your job is patience, but I think that applies in a lot of different areas where like, no, I can't save your home tomorrow. It's compounding. It's the compound effect when it comes to these things, so that it can result in a bigger change. So that's dope. So I went on Google Maps and I looked up Woodlawn, and I saw that the University of Chicago is right there. Is that? Am I correct on that? Is it?
Yes.
So I don't know if you saw the story of this Asian gas station owner who shot this black kid in Columbia, South Carolina. That recently he was recently acquitted. now I'm going to get to our point. Columbia, South Carolina, the University of South Carolina is in Columbia, South Carolina, which is a historically Black neighborhood. And this huge college institution was placed in the middle of the hood. And that comes with, again, it's kind of similar where like certain ordinances were put in for that. If you're bringing this university here, you have to employ the community, but they end up all being support staff, and the money that's from the school isn't building up this actual community. I did a training at University of South Carolina, and I saw it in my own too. From the moment I stepped in that neighborhood, I saw it and I felt it. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Temple University in Philly. I did a semester at Temple. Temple University is this huge college just plopped in the middle of the hood. It just plopped in the middle of a Black neighborhood. You literally just walk on the other side of the end of campus, a block over, and it's a Black neighborhood who clearly lacking resources and all that stuff. So when I saw the University of Chicago near Woodlawn, the same thought came into my mind. Like, is this another example of this huge university that's in this place, a lot of resources, a whole lot of money, but the surrounding community isn't benefiting from it? Is that part of the reason why this is happening in Woodlawn too? And like you said, it is not just the Obama Center, but does that have a big factor into it too?
Yeah, 100%. The university is definitely an economic driver in the neighborhood. I mean, historically, the university actually like raised a good part of the communities around its campus, Hyde Park and Woodlawn, to make it, more attractive for like faculty members and students to want to live there. And so even like you see like these, I be digging deep in the weeds when it comes to like property records and stuff, and like these $1 million homes that have been, converted from multifamily homes. A lot of the people buying them are, doctors who work at University of Chicago Hospital, or, professors who work there. So it's definitely a big part of what's happening in the neighborhood. It's just with them, it's been sort of like a long, steady, thing that's not as flashy as the Obama Center.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. So kind of what we talked about before about this new age of journalism. There's a phrase that was in the article, solutions-focused journalism, that was used a lot in, and that was interesting to me because, again, it spoke to this new age where journalism aren't just objective, we're giving solutions. How has that been? Explain solutions-focused journalism, basically. Yeah.
So solutions journalism is essentially like an effort to, there's like a whole organization and stuff that, they sort of champion the idea and like train reporters on how to do it. But it's essentially an attempt to like combat like the doom and gloom of like the news, where it's like, all you guys do is talk about problems, which is true.
Yeah.
It can be a bummer. And the goal, the effort there is to report on like things that are being done to fix problems instead. So like, for example, I can't talk about that because it hasn't been published yet. I was gonna out a story that we're publishing soon.
Nah, you're good.
But I don't know, say like, a school is out of money, right? Like instead of reporting on the fact that the school doesn't have any money, like you might report on, the local community hosting, fundraisers to buy computers for the school, right? Like, and solutions journalism basically investigates or looks into the sustainability, the replicability, the impact of those solutions. I wrote a story in November about like a small program in Illinois that's trying to solve the issue of access to courts. Like a lot of people don't live they don't live in areas where like their court is accessible to them. Either they have to take like 2 buses, or they don't have a car. core hours or business hours, so they're at work, all these types of things. So the courts are training library staff to like have people join their court hearings via Zoom in the library, or to help people like access the different forms and stuff that they need for their court case, like that type of stuff. And so like that's a solution story that I wrote, right? Like I looked at like how many places this is working, the successes of it, the things that it needs to be more successful. Yeah. And so I think it's a nice balance. And it makes people feel good, that like good things are happening.
Yeah.
And, like some problems are being solved,
Yeah. No, I like that. I do want to circle back to the ordinances and these things that are being done. I feel like as millennials, I don't know if you could agree with this, but I've been feeling more and more like the more things I learn and the more spaces and rooms I'm in, I'm getting more disappointed because I just assume as you're getting older, people in these rooms making these decisions were very smart, intelligent people, and they are. And you just always figured like the reason why things go wrong is like maybe clerical or administrative or things get crossed. But the more and more you recognize that these people really sit in a room and make decisions, but don't follow through, or the ideas don't really make any sense, or like the execution isn't there, it's very disappointing because I thought there was something else. I thought there had to be a better explanation. So when I hear about these ordinances and the money's just sitting there and people, this was written into the law, but nobody ever planned how to actually execute it, it makes me very frustrated because I'm like, these are grown, intelligent, experienced people. How are we going through this? And it's, especially as a journalist, I'm sure you get behind the scenes a lot. How much is that the case where it's like people just drop the ball because we just didn't follow through?
Yeah. I mean, I will say this is like my 9 to 5 is like criticizing municipal workers, but like, they do have hard jobs,
Let me take this time to say you guys are doing a great job. Nah, call them out. Call them out, investigative reporter. They gotta get their stuff together. Come on.
There are people too, but honestly, what is my opinion on this? I think that governments will get away with what the people allow them to get away with. Case in point, like our president and his many, 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 many illegal decrees. You know what I'm saying? Like it takes people who know that that's illegal and like can spend time and resources to sue him. You know what I'm saying? Or to like, publish articles, or to, you know what I'm saying? To say like, hey, ding, 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 like this is not right. And like if those people don't do that work, those things will happen. You know what I'm saying? And so governments will get away with, there are a lot of well-intended, good-hearted people working in government. There are also lazy people. There are also power-hungry people. There, you know what I'm saying? So like, not going to paint a broad brush on the people, but in terms of like the institution, it must be beholden to public accountability. It must be. And if something goes like without scrutiny, it's likely that the outcome will not be positive, which is like unfortunate. But that's why journalism is so important. That's why local journalism is so important, right? Like it's so important that there's somebody at city hall meetings recording what people are saying and checking back in a year later to say, hey, no, you said you were going to do this. So like, did you do it? Yeah. And, there's a multitude of reasons why things go wrong. Like, bureaucracy is a beast, right? Like all the red tape, the bigger the city, the more hoops to jump through for things. And, you have people with conflicting interests, conflicting ideas, right? Like the politics of it. But at the end of the day, like, I don't care about that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to know when I turn on my faucet, clean water comes out. You know what I'm saying? I want to know when I walk down the street, I'm not falling in a pothole. You know, I want to know when I have kids, they can go to a school and they're getting an education just as good as the kids across the city are getting, right? Like, and that is the government's responsibility and everybody who signs up for those jobs to make sure that that happens. And it's the public's responsibility to push them into doing that. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, and I agree. And I have worked in government, and so when I say government, I'm not talking about the clerk or the assistant or even like the office manager, because I know those aren't the jobs that dictate these whole citywide policies. When I say government, I'm talking about the people who are in positions to vote and veto and talk about and bring issues to the table. Like, those are the people in government I'm referring to.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. It's definitely a part of the
and I think that we've you know, established this unfortunate system where politicians want to be reelected, right? So they'll say and do things and pass laws that will help them get reelected, even if they don't necessarily believe in them, you know?
Jeez, yeah.
So like, and that's a function of where we are. You know what I'm saying? It's why you have Congress people, you know, beholden to, you know, all these like big industries, you know what I'm saying? Like, and their votes and their policy efforts are like impacted by a small group of people, you know, because they want to be elected, right? And so like that's the power that we have as people. And, you know, sometimes it can feel like we actually don't really have that much power. But I think like the more that we really look at the system that we have and like pull the levers that we do have and like keep pulling them and not letting up on them, you know, like you strengthen the muscle of the power that you do have.
Yeah. Where do you see investigative reporting in 10 years? Is it going to be controlled by all AI robots? Are you going to be able to like teleport to Spain to do a story?
Use the AIs. Don't do it. And I'm coming on here, this might be a hot take, but like newsrooms that are publishing articles using AI, I'm not into it. I'm not into that. I'm not into that at all.
They ain't real. They fake reporters. You can say it.
Right. They not in the gym with the rest of us.
They How detrimental is that? That's what it's the same thing in the legal field. The people who use AI to write their whole motions, there's no thought into it. They just throw it into ChatGPT. How real is that in the journalism world?
Yeah. I mean, like, I understand the temptation. You know what I'm saying? If I could get a robot to write a 4,000 word article, I like, and everything was good. You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand. But I think it's really important to think about the consequences thereof. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, some of the things that we talked about that reporters do, AI cannot. You know what I'm saying? Tech cannot. Like, you cannot cultivate those relationships with people, with sources. You need a human to use judgment, you know, to determine like what a word means in different contexts, right? Like when X audience is reading, you know, me say this phrase, like what will the implied meaning be behind that, right? Like I think that's really important. And the words of a reporter are so powerful. So I think it is crucial to think about it. You know, I'm all for it in like in terms of what is the word that I'm looking for? Efficiency, like productivity tools. You know what I'm saying? That type of stuff. Like as a reporter, I would say 65% of my time is spent reading records. Is spent like I file a FOIA request. I get 1,000 pages of records from a city department and I spend, you know, a week reading them. Like, I've seen newsrooms use AI to scrape records so that they can do bigger projects. And I think that that's cool, and I think it's cool to do. And if you have like, humans checking the fact that the work is good, but then when you get into, just like you were talking about with lawyers, there was a lawyer here in Chicago, like they wrote some brief, and like they used AI, and AI like hallucinated a case for precedent that didn't exist, and
Yes.
yikes, right? Like that has a lot of consequences. Big yikes. So yeah, I just don't think that you can use it willy-nilly.
Maybe you should become a lawyer, because I feel like, hearing you talk is kind of crazy. You know the process. You're ingrained in this, at least you know the administrative and the process flow of how this thing works. And you really getting FOIA requests. You read a lot. You write a lot. Hit up a law school, man.
I stay in court. Like
that's crazy. That's dope.
I stay on Pacer, okay, reading all the
Yo, I use Pacer every day. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you see your career in 10 years? Do you see yourself still doing investigative reporting?
Yeah. Well, I didn't answer your question about investigative reporting, where it would be in 10 years, because I got stuck on AI. So I'm going to answer that question first.
Oh, yeah, sorry. You're good.
It will become a little more democratic, but we're actually seeing this interesting thing where, like, there are all these news influencers, independent journalists, and I think more of that will happen. And I'm not sure if in 10 years newsrooms will learn their lesson or not, right? Like on how to empower, support, pay journalists in a way that's sustainable. But even now, like we're seeing like collaboration between legacy newsrooms and influence, like the influencers. The Washington Post has a whole vertical in its business dedicated to collaboration with influencers who do news. So I think we'll see the form and fashion of journalism becoming less and less traditional over the next 10 years for sure. And I think for myself in 10 years, I'm in a point in my career where I'm trying to figure out, do I want to be a reporter forever? I'm not sure if I want to be, like the 60-year-old, still trying to get the facts and, late night dinners and stuff. But I'm really into tool building. I don't like reading stories that are 4,000 words long. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't have time to be reading all that. You know what I'm saying? So I am really considering what are ways that you can take this information and convert it into something that is accessible and easy for the most people. Whether that's like, whether it's a database where you can like pop in your address and find out the policies that, were passed last year that impact the way you live there. Or, if it's just like little bite-sized tools and products that give people information. Because ultimately, like at the end of the day, that's what's the most important, is that the research that I did help somebody make a decision to better their life, right? Like, so yeah, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but that's where I'm trying to go in 10 years for sure.
That's fine. That's a dope way to end the pod. Thank you for being on today. Honestly, reading through this article and reading through the different articles you wrote, I can see how these things make impact. And I know, like you said, people may see this as boring, but it's such important information that people need to inform their decision. And you're doing it. I'm proud of you. This is really dope.
Thank you, Akeem. You knew me when I was still hustling and struggling.
Exactly. Before doing the rest of it, you still trying to figure out where you was going. Yeah, no, honestly. And then, like I said, reading through, I'm like, man, I'm about to bring a tangent about, like, this is fact. You really doing it. You really, and it's fire. It's good. It's quality. It's impactful. Like, that's amazing to see. So keep doing it. Keep doing your thing. And we're going to see if AI is going to be in control in 10 years.
Oh my God. Please. You can't let the robots take over.
No robots, please. All right. Thank you for this be an episode of Conversate. All right.